Welcome to the I'm Not Done But podcast, where we won't claim to have the answers to life's deepest questions, but we promise you an exciting journey into the realms of knowledge you never knew you needed. Join us as we dive headfirst into topics that might be mainstream, but not common knowledge. From artificial intelligence to conspiracy theories, no topic is too taboo for us to explore. Let's get curious together. On this episode of the I'm Not Done But podcast, we're going to be talking about prostitution scandals within the U.S. government. Grab your wet wipes. This might get messy. I'm your host, Caesar, joined by Rob.
You.
Victor.
How y'all doing?
And a special guest, Chris.
Hey.
What's up, fellas? How y'all doing?
Good, man.
Good.
Good.
So should I get out my credit card for this, or do they take cash?
Probably.
I got a couple 20s in my wallet.
It's inflation, bro. They're like $10 now. You got to come with 100. All right. So I recently came across a story about a high-end brothel that was recently shut down.
Federal officers busted a cross-country prostitution ring that operated in our own backyard. Federal officials charged 3 people with a sophisticated brothel ring that operated from locations in Northern Virginia. A report claims the ring used apartments in Fairfax and Tysons. Many of the clients were pretty high profile.
So, feds bust high-end brothel where politicians and military officers allegedly paid for sex. This story goes and says, the authorities arrested 3 individuals accused of organizing a high-end brothel network that had been operating since 2020 and whose customers included elected officials and military officers, and a new indictment alleges 3 individuals were arrested after an extensive investigation uncovered an interstate prostitution network. The defendants are charged with running multiple brothels that advertised for models in Massachusetts and Virginia. The defendants advertised the prostitution network on 2 websites. They offered appointments with women in either Boston or Eastern Virginia and listed each woman's height, weight, bust size with nude and semi-nude photographs. As a good Samaritan, I tried to look for these 2 websites to try to avoid them and maybe tell people not to use them, but I couldn't find them.
I can't believe that someone would open up a high-end brothel during COVID. You know, in this time that people need to be isolating and not spreading, and they open up a brothel during COVID, ridiculous.
Have you no shame?
That's a good point. But remember, people were getting depressed. So maybe
were they sanitizing?
No, do they get to charge more because of the time?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a premium to it.
We'll get to the prices a little bit later on, and you'll see.
After being serviced, they put out their phone and asked for a tip.
So, who were the customers that went to this establishment? Prepare yourselves. Prosecutors say that the high-end brothel network serviced customers working in the following professions: politicians, pharmaceutical executives, doctors, military officers, government contractors that possess security clearances, professors, lawyers, business executives, technology company executives, scientists, accountants, retail employees, and students. And also, I think they also service the homeless person who holds the door for you and asks for some spare change, and the guy who twirls signs on the side of the road. Those are the customers that this place serviced.
That's a big range, though.
First of all,
professors and students. So you're like late for an exam, and you're like, I'm sorry, professor. Didn't you just give me a lecture on ethics?
Too much stress, bro. Too much
business ethics.
But the customers weren't named since this is an ongoing investigation. So we don't know if we'll ever know who actually got serviced by this establishment. But Chris mentioned earlier the prices. The brothels charge customers from $350 to $600 per hour, depending on the services, and they wanted it paid in cash. So the appointments with sex workers allegedly took place in high-end apartment complexes where the rent was as much as $5,600 a month.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
That's pretty low for a Manhattan apartment, though.
Yeah, but this is what? This is Massachusetts. This is Virginia.
That's like
This is Virginia.
325 square foot studio.
That's a studio in the village. I mean,
$600 per hour. Assuming you worked 40 hours per week, you're making a nice $1.2 million per year.
That's excellent.
Not too shabby. $1 million after taxes. So not too shabby. So
I
Chris,
don't know. I don't know if a girl can do a 40-hour week like that.
I mean, listen, from my personal experience, I don't even know if I could be going for 1 hour. So, he's probably cutting it down to about 2. Break that 600 divided by 2. The rest is settling up.
Yeah. Well, it's 5 minutes of work, 2 hours of crying.
remember, they're on the clock, but they're not really working all the time.
All right.
Probably
fair.
taking their 15-minute breaks, which count. You stack them together. That's 30 minutes.
Are they unionized?
I was gonna
What
say,
is
are
this?
these union workers? Because they might be looking for another contract.
Local 69.
Unions.
I mean, you hear this stuff like this all the time, like once in a while you hear like governor or whoever, high officials, to get the service and they get busted and they resign, so it's not a surprise to me at all, but still, this is wild, I don't know. I haven't heard this story before, so I'm kind of interested to see where it goes.
So just like you, I agree, right? When I initially came across it, I wasn't really that interested because I was like, oh, people of influence caught up in their debauchery again. It was, it's whatever. Until I learned something interesting.
Prosecutors allege that there were military personnel with security clearances as well as politicians. And how do they know that? Well, according to these documents, it says that the prostitution ring actually asked for what was the equivalent of a resume for their clients.
That's what got me. These guys were literally showing resumes to try to get these services. So I thought that was pretty funny. So any potential client was required to complete a form on the website with their names, email address, phone numbers, and an employer in a so-called verification process before proceeding. And I actually read somewhere where they compare this to a TSA type pre-checking process. So imagine that.
That's how you get a newsletter going.
So the resume line was what got me, right? And the job market is getting tough that you need a great resume and a cover letter to hire a prostitute these days. So this story got me thinking about other scandals involving prostitution within the U.S. government. And the first one I got, do you guys remember Eliot Spitzer?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if there was like some kind of relation or anything.
Yeah.
With this.
So
Is he
So
running
Eliot-
the joint now?
no. This was
okay.
completely. This is different.
I just thought
Okay.
maybe.
Have you guys seen the TikTok, or not the TikTok? It was like one of the, how they do like the YouTube street interviews and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know they interviewed the guy that put Eliot Spitzer away
Oh no.
by chance? Have you ever seen that one?
No.
The guy literally goes about how they're like, oh, what did you go to jail for?
I opened this escort agency called New York Confidential in like 2003, which was the largest, most famous, and most expensive escort agency in the world. And I got in trouble and I went to jail, but I had the most fun of my life for a couple of years.
Did you get in trouble for
The
it?
governor of New York, this guy Eliot Spitzer, was seeing one of the girls at my escort agency.
What?
And he decided to set up and bust my escort agency to get global media attention for a sexy story. And off was a client of my place, and he busted me, so I just told on him. He up my little party lifestyle, and I up his political career.
Oh.
That makes sense.
Oh,
what I'm about to say
shit.
then. Oh, okay, look at that. So Eliot Spitzer was a New York governor from 2007 to 2008, and he was forced to resign after being identified, I guess, from that guy in an affidavit as client number 9 for the Emperor's Club VIP, which was a high-end prostitution ring to which Spitzer allegedly paid thousands of dollars to have sex with prostitutes named Kristen, a.k.a. Ashley Dupre. He did not face any criminal charges, though, however. So the reason why they got him was there was an investigation on Spitzer, which was initiated by the North Fork Bank, which were reported suspicious transactions from the Treasury Department. Allegedly, Spitzer had at least 7 liaisons with prostitutes from the Emperor's Club over 6 months and paid about more than $15,000 for their services. Federal agents had him under surveillance since twice in 2008. And according to published reports, investigators believe Spitzer paid up to $80,000 for prostitutes over a period of several years. First while he was Attorney General and later as a governor.
The Emperor's Club?
The Emperor's Club.
I think I just ordered from them.
Wasn't there a
last
movie
week.
about that?
I think that's the Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, yeah. My bad.
New Groove.
I'm sorry, but you've thrown off the Emperor's Groove.
One of the funniest things about this case, right? This is the funniest thing. During a wiretap operation, and he was going to meet up with the same lady of the night.
Kristen.
Yeah, he was going to meet up with Kristen. He used a pseudonym, George Fox, when he checked into the hotel. And why is that funny? Well, because George Fox was actually one of his close friends. George Fox is a hedge fund investor and was pissed when he found out. So, Victor, if you get some weird mail, don't worry about it. Just throw it out.
I'm going to use that name next time I go to Starbucks.
George Fox?
George Fox?
Eliot Spitzer became an adjunct instructor at City College. After
really?
He resigned. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
After he resigned?
Teaching law and public policies.
Oh, my God. That tells you about the CUNY system.
That class was so popular, I tried to take it. Couldn't get in.
Are there any field trips on this class? Are we going to do any field trips?
Any hands-on?
Fox's last name, George's first name.
I really just want to jump in there, take law by the horns.
Internships? All right, so for the next scandal, we got one from Randy Duke Cunningham. Now, Randy Duke Cunningham was a member of the House of Representatives from 1991 to 2005, and who admittedly took millions in bribes and free sexual services from prostitutes paid mostly by defense contractors in exchange for government businesses. Surprise, surprise. One article I read was quoted as saying Cunningham was very willing to be indulged by defense contractors, for whom he set up an actual menu of bribes for contracts. So this guy was just like, whatever.
I mean,
I'm
that
down.
just sounds like efficiency. And that's the kind of guy I want in office.
But let's be honest here. His name's Randy.
Randy,
and he calls himself Duke. I mean,
yeah. This guy is he's butt naked and cowboy boots, just like ready to go.
Yeah, he's in a hot tub, naked with a cowboy hat on, waiting for prostitutes.
Exactly.
There's no way you saw this guy's name on the ballot and thought, no, this guy's going to be on the straight and narrow.
The Duke?
The Duke? Come on, he's the Duke. You expect this from the Duke.
If I'm throwing a party, guess who I'm inviting? The Duke.
He's invited. He's invited. Remember this. I got a little fun fact about him at the end. Remember this. So in 2005, he resigned from his position in Congress and he pled guilty to charges of tax evasion and conspiracy to commit bribery, mail fraud, and wire fraud. He was convicted of accepting at least $2.4 million in bribes and sentenced to just over 8 years in federal prison. Fun fact. The character of Maverick from Top Gun is loosely based on this guy.
No.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
No.
Was the Duke a fighter pilot?
Yes. Yeah, he was.
He was?
Yes.
Oh, I love this guy already.
Which gives these two Maverick quotes new meaning. Number 1, all right, sweetheart, one last ride. And 2, put that in your Pentagon budget. I should probably watch those movies.
You've never seen those?
Bits and pieces. But now, after listening to...
Wait.
Are you an American?
What? You've never seen Top Gun?
Son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash.
Bits and pieces.
Let's just watch
come on.
both right now.
Come on, even
Bits
I
and
watched
pieces.
it.
Bits and pieces?
Yeah, not the whole thing.
Did
But
you
now
have
I'm
to
definitely
watch
gonna watch
that when you got your citizenship? I thought that's what they play.
They had the subtitles. I wasn't worried about that.
Have you never jumped onto the highway? To the danger zone?
All the time. And I definitely have played beach volleyball in super short shorts. But other than that, I have not seen this movie. Bits and pieces.
God, that's just sad.
Randy Duke Cunningham, the Maverick.
No.
He's too pure.
He doesn't pay for it.
Well, neither did this guy, technically.
Well, yeah.
Technically,
the defense
no, this guy-
contractors do. He just indulges.
This guy, just reading about him, he was like, this guy was so openly corrupt that other members of the house were like, are you kidding me right now? You can't be doing this shit.
What's that scene from Wolf of Wall Street?
The IRS, they allow for TNA. It's fine.
TNE. TNE.
Yeah, I said TNA.
No, you said TNA.
The next guy I got is Barney Frank. an openly gay member of Congress and a former chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, who was reprimanded by the House in 1990 after admitting he paid Steve Goby, a male prostitute, for sex, and then later hiring him as one of his aides. Frank said he had paid for sex with the prostitute one time in the spring of 1985, and he had hired him as a personal employee later that year because he thought he could encourage the man to, and I quote, change his life.
Okay,
change
Goby.
his life. Change his life.
What district did he represent?
This guy, I don't know. I forgot. But later on, I'll tell you, because this guy's legislative career is actually really spot on. Other than this thing, you guys heard of the Dodd-Frank Act?
Mm-hmm.
He's the Frank in that. He is the one. And the Dodd-Frank.
I thought you said his name was Barney.
No,
Barney
Dodd-Frank.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Frank. Yeah.
I thought you said his name was Barney.
Where did he get the Dodd from?
As a thank you to Frank, Goby, the prostitute, claimed to have operated a prostitution service outside of the congressman's apartment. Goby claimed that Barney Frank knew that this was going on. But after an ethics committee investigation, Frank was found that he did not know what was allegedly going on. And Barney Frank was quoted as saying, I concede poor judgment on it, and it turns out that I was being suckered. Goby, amongst other things, was a very good con man, amongst other things. Quote unquote.
This
a gentle lover as well.
This sounds like a Pretty Woman thing. The guy, he hired a prostitute. He thought he could save save his life, change his ways. He was just the Richard Gere in this love story. That's what I believe.
The prostitute started his own prostitute services outside of the guy's apartment. Did that happen in Pretty Woman?
In the sequel, when she gets all the cash and then becomes an entrepreneur. Listen, you call it prostitution. I call it enterprising.
He's creating jobs. And to bring in your gay lover as an aide, I mean, that's just efficiency,
True. And unlike our boy Duke, Barney Frank, was paying him out of pocket. So he wasn't using taxpayers' money.
See?
So
there's nothing wrong with that.
That's a stand-up guy.
Other than this little thing, Barney Frank was pretty good at this government thing.
I mean, he served until 2013.
No, this guy was legit. If you look at his history, it's legit.
Who's this Dodd character, though?
Yeah, and what did
that
they
one
do?
I don't know.
Now, what did they contribute?
I mean, it just seems like all these guys are getting into prostitution. I mean, maybe there's something to this. It's one of the oldest professions. It's not going away. Clearly, there's a need for it. Why don't they just make it legal? A couple of streets here and there.
It's a service.
It's a service. You're paying for goods and services. There's a need for it.
You can set them up like Valvolines, You go in, you get your card.
30 minutes or less, or it's free.
Listen, how do you make a good worker bee source? They're out there. Everyone's working. We don't have time. Everyone's on apps now. We're dealing with all this stuff. Put a couple of red light districts here and there. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone gets right back to work. 80 hours a week. Run down to the street. Come right back. Everyone's happy.
He got into trouble for it. So he
reprimanded.
But how come he didn't resign like others? And he was able to stay on until...
Yeah, he's a fucking boss. And it wasn't like any sort of corruption scandal. It was just like a slap on the wrist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because if you notice, Duke didn't plead guilty for prostitution. He pled guilty for bribery.
Yeah, you can't bribe. That's wrong.
Plus, looking at it now, thank God our boy Barney stayed. Because I'm telling you, his legislative prowess was really good, especially after the 2008 financial crisis. So thank God for him.
Was he a Democrat or an American?
I think he was a Democrat.
Okay.
I think he was a Democrat. I think our boy Randy
from Massachusetts.
Randy was a Republican from some other state.
And who was the president at that time?
Well, it was 1990. So it was what? Who's that? George Bush or Clinton?
Bush Sr.?
Yeah.
Bush Sr. All right.
And then the last scandal that I got for you guys. Do you guys remember that Secret Service prostitution scandal a couple of years ago?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Whatever happened to that?
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it. So in April 2012, the United States Secret Service found themselves in the center of a scandal during President Barack Obama's visit to Cartagena, Colombia. A group of secret...
You know, there's a shipwrecked over there.
Yeah? How much money does it got?
10 billion.
20 billion. 20 billion.
Call me when it's 50. So a group of Secret Service agents and U.S. military personnel faced accusations of engaging in inappropriate activities with local women and prostitutes. The scandal unfolded as an altercation between one of the agents and a prostitute over payment erupted, drawing the attention of the hotel staff and subsequently leading to an official investigation. Initial report reported a dozen agents, but in totality, it was 13 Secret Service personnel and 11 members of the U.S. military. The misconduct allegations were around the agents bringing prostitutes back to their hotel rooms, a violation of the Secret Service Code of Conduct, despite it being legal in Cartagena.
What do we get for $10?
There's always the one guy who ruins
it. Was only in Cartagena?
It was only in Cartagena. So how it unfolded, Barack was landing in 24 hours. These guys had a little bit of time to chill. So they went out and do a little have some fun. There were a couple of hotels. Some of them started doing some extracurricular activities. This one guy drew the ire of one of the ladies, and then, all hell broke loose after that.
But it's legal in Colombia.
Down there, but it did break their code of conduct, especially considering these guys are supposed to be protecting the president. And they haven't had good luck in history. Yet. Yeah, well, you got to prepare, man.
Yeah, but I'm sure that some of them probably know his itinerary, and they probably don't want.
And they're not on duty for
talk.
another 4 hours. The guy wants to get in and get out. But I'm gonna be honest with you. If I'm the president and I got guys looking after my ass, I want them clear-minded. So I would probably say, you better get out there. Listen, if I got a guy holding a sniper rifle, I want him to have a steady hand. You ever seen that?
The biggest problem was that these visitors were getting access to these hotel rooms where all these other individuals were staying. That's the problem. So it's a matter of national security. Yeah.
Security. Do you have more detail? I'm curious about, you said there the altercation was between the price, right? The payment, you said? Do you know exactly?
They didn't say
Chris, you've been very focused on how much these services cost in various situations.
Chris is running the numbers. He's got Excel open.
Think about it. This whole thing they got busted over say $1 or $5.
Yeah. Colombian peso.
Is the one, you know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous.
The exchange rate is,
or is it over
that counts.
All right, so this is what we do. Chris, you start an app that helps these government officials be able to pay these prostitution rings efficiently. There's a clear need for it. All these guys are getting busted because of what? Payment.
Real apps.
And before we move on and before we finish up, let's talk about the underpinning of all these stories, pun intended, which is prostitution. Prostitution laws in the United States vary significantly from state to state because prostitution is primarily relegated at the state and local level. In the majority of states, prostitution is illegal. Engaging in or soliciting prostitution as well as operating brothels can lead to criminal charges. Some parts of the U.S. have actually legalized or decriminalized certain aspects of prostitution. For example, certain counties in Nevada actually allow regulated and licensed brothels. I think they have about 19 brothels. And I think they have 19 counties and 10 of them prostitution is legal. But each state has its own statutes and regulations regarding prostitutions. Some states have stricter laws and penalties, while others may be a little bit more lenient in the approaches. And some of them are actually reevaluating their stance on the issue. While prostitution is primarily regulated at the state level, certain federal laws address related issues, such as interstate trafficking of individuals for the purpose of prostitution. And we all know human trafficking is one of the it's a huge, huge problem, not here, but just in the world. And moving forward in the recent years, there's been an increased advocacy for the decriminalization or legalization of prostitution in some places. Advocates argue that it could improve the safety and well-being of sex workers by allowing for better regulations and protections.
I mean, listen, 20 years ago, we spoke about the legalizing of marijuana like it was never going to happen. And now every year we have another state legalizing it, taxing it, regulating it, and it's like a booming business. I think it's only a matter of time. That being said, I think we're like, I don't know, decades away from getting close to that, just because there's so many just religious groups that probably partake in these services but don't want to admit it. And then on top of that, it being illegal just kind of fuels the whole kind of criminal underworld of it, and all the sketchy stuff about it. But one day I can see it being eventually legalized, unless the religious conservatives of the country take over, and then, we're just screwed.
I'm just curious. Besides Nevada, what other states?
First is like location and then
Chris
price.
a list.
Yeah, right.
Can someone get Chris a list
Demand.
of brothels?
What's the supply?
God.
Chris is already opening up a business in Delaware.
So besides Nevada, nowhere else.
Can you just tell me where I can find one and like
Nowhere
exactly
else?
what address?
Okay. That's what I thought.
So besides Nevada, nowhere else. And besides those like 10 counties, like I said, it's illegal everywhere else.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Just in case,
What we should do is we should take a trip to these 19 places to see what they look like. This way, if we ever walk across them in real life, we would know how to avoid them.
I like that idea.
Field trip.
Actually, there's been reports that in Queens, in one area, I forgot the area, but it's getting so crazy that the women are actually outside on the streets.
On the street? And where in Queens?
It's like a major road.
I want to say Woodside, but I don't. Yeah, it's a major road. It's a major road.
Woodside?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unreal.
No.
The women are just grabbing guys and just like, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
In my backyard?
In my backyard. I will say, though, I remember my parents always saying, like, back in the day, 42nd Street was, like, super raunchy. Like, there was always prostitutes. And I remember even when I was growing up, like, 42nd Street was much different than the Disneyland it is now. I mean, now it's like a defunct Disneyland. But I remember during COVID, when I used to go home and, like, 3, 4 o'clock at night, there was a lot of prostitutes out during COVID. And then now it kind of all cleaned up. Yeah. Yeah, we used to see them at night when we were all going home. And I was like, holy crap.
I think... Like, I know my parents specifically, they still view the city as that kind of like King of New York, gangland. Anytime I say, oh, you're going to the city, they're like, oh, okay, just, be safe.
Careful.
I'm like, I'm in Midtown. Like, we're cool. She's like, oh, no, that's, one of the worst parts. And I'm like, it's not 1985 anymore. Things have changed. But to them, it's still that like,
that
prostitution
old show
ring.
used to go at is a kava now.
Yeah, it's a sweet green.
I'm getting an organic salad. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah. The only thing you're getting there is fiber.
Baby kale salad.
That's all I got for you guys. So what were some takeaways?
That was a fun episode. I gotta say, that was a fun episode.
Chris, what'd you learn, man? Besides the price and location.
Interesting.
Chris, we'll get you a list shortly.
I'll give you the resources.
No, it is definitely interesting topic, But I think, and to me, it's like when those events or such happened back in the days, like I didn't really care about or I didn't really pay attention to. But now, as I get older, it's
now that he's older, married,
wants to avoid those.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's different. It's yeah.
What about you, Rob?
This is. I think this is what our government officials do. I mean, you can't say they don't take bribes. They take bribes. Everyone gets taken out to dinner. This is a recurring thing. I'm sure this is not the first time, not the last time we're going to see this. If the key to reducing all this type of stuff is to legalize it and then regulate it. I think, like Victor said, we're decades away from that type of stuff. We're definitely going to get there one day, right? Society is becoming more and more and more progressive and open-minded to when it was. We're seeing this type of stuff reflected out in Europe all the time. I think it'll get there, you know. This is it's not going away. It's been prostitution and stuff like that has been around forever. Right now, these guys, they're in a position of power. They have unlimited money. And what else are you going to spend your money on when you're in a position like that? So that's human nature to me, I think.
What about you, Victor?
I think this is a good time that I announce my run for representative in the United States Congress. I feel I can make a big difference.
You probably can.
And hire the best aides.
George Santos is available.
No, listen. Like Rob said, this is nothing new. And these are the guys that get caught or admit to, I guess, wrongdoing. It's probably way more than this. Like the list is probably endless. And we make a huge outrage and then nothing really comes of it, you know?
Well said.
We want to wrap up the season, baby.
Yeah, we want to take a minute to express our gratitude to our community. Your feedback has been invaluable, and we're thrilled to know that you're enjoying the content as much as we enjoy producing it. As this is the last episode of Season 1, rest assured that we are gearing up for an exciting return with Season 2 on January 3rd. Stay tuned for more topics, interviews, and laughs. Thank you for your continued support, and we look forward to bringing you more compelling content in the upcoming season. And if you enjoyed today's show, feel free to name drop this podcast to your friends and family. We encourage you to be active of a part of our community. Whether you have questions, suggestions, or just want to share your thoughts on the topics we cover, we want to hear from you. To stay updated on new content and to join in on the discussion, check us out at Twitter at I'm Not Dumb But, and leave some comments on our Facebook page. And on behalf of the I'm Not Dumb But crew, happy holidays, and until next time, stay curious. Deuces.
Later.